Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. Riot, after all the drama of the last few days, have officially backtracked on their decision to deny the guard players entry to the VCT, and they will now allow those players to secure opportunities elsewhere and also potentially bring in another 11th new team into the VCT instead of the guards. Apparently though, this is far from guaranteed to happen even as of now, with some rumours emerging that if they do decide to split up and not stay together, which they might well be planning to do, that this will actually not happen at all, and we won't have an 11th team in the league after all. Lots of drama on this, roster stuff happening all over the park right now. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. Ye might go to China. I don't know what's happening with Ye. And to be honest, Ye, as of yet, has not really been linked anywhere as it stands. So, you know, we haven't really heard Ye's name linked to NRG or to Cloud9 or to something like that. So definitely one to stay tuned for. I know that he did mention a little while ago that he's happy to play for the minimum. And look, he might not be forced to, but he might be, because apparently a lot of these teams are looking to pay minimums next season. Now, unfortunately for Eccles, who was briefly on 100 Thieves, you guys might remember, he, joined this team Heat Gaming, and now has just been blocked by them, right? So this is one of the things that you get with these organizations that aren't particularly well secured, shall we say, and this is why Valorant and Riot do their due diligence in terms of which organizations they partner with, because, you know, in tier 2 you get orgs like this that, are just going to block players that haven't been paid salary. So I don't know if Eccles has too many repercussions on this. Often you'll find that while you might think you can take these guys to court and get your money that way, often if these organizations have just gone bankrupt and there's no money left, the players aren't the first people to get paid in that circumstance, and once the money's run out, the players don't get any of it. And it's happened before, it'll probably happen again. Wishing Eccles the best on this though, absolutely. Now, we've got to talk some roster drama, because there's always drama between like the leakers and the reporters in the scene. So James Vev, we talked about this yesterday, who's the Scrimbucks guy, basically from VLR, he says that from his, what he knows about the trials, he saw this team of Victor, Crashies, Marv, John QT and Tex. This apparently was a team of 5. The question is, were they trialing for NRG? Were they trialing somewhere else, or is there anything in this at all? Because George Geddes says lol, as in, this ain't true, buddy. Now, he then actually commented on the VLR page here and said, for context, George Geddes replied to my tweet, etc., mocking my reporting. My report wasn't incorrect regarding the trials, but it was wrong with the organization running the trial, which kind of seems to imply that it might have been a Cloud9 or somebody else that were looking at those 5 guys. But and this is the other point that I've seen lots to talk about actually, is that NRG and Cloud9, and potentially 100 Thieves as well, because this has been said by Nadeshot that they will be looking to cut salaries, seem to be having a massive overhaul due to financial and internal issues. There's also been talk that Cloud9 are effectively just going to have like 5 rookies really, and the reason why Jake is the only one on the Flynn VLR spreadsheet that is staying is because he's the only one that is accepting the minimum. The other players apparently are saying, no, we want to try and get more money, we'll go elsewhere. But Cloud9, after saying, oh, it's role issues, there's nothing financial issues going on here at all, apparently might be offering minimums to all of their players. So yeah, stay tuned for that one, but doesn't necessarily mean that this team of 5 is wrong, just means that, I mean, look, it's a trial anyway. You've got to take all these things with a pinch of salt, because it's so early days here in Rostermania, but some teams will already have a good idea what they're up to, so just want to keep your eyes on there with what's happening with NRG and Cloud9. Now, even on a day where Riot and Leah Farrier have kind of taken a W, I wouldn't even, what we're going to discuss in a few minutes time here, describe it as a W, just because it shouldn't have even been a conversation in the first place, but we'll get to that in a second. But even on a day where they managed to take a dub as far as the community is concerned, they still managed to take an L, because Leah Farrier was discussing the tier 2 situation and was kind of giving his thoughts on it, and he spoke for a couple of minutes here. The key quote that people were mentioning was the following, translated as follows: we saw that many organizations joined tier 2 with the goal of establishing themselves and playing the regional leagues for multiple years, even if not getting the promotion to franchising, but that goes against what we think. That's not our vision. We don't seek stability in tier 2. And I think this kind of shows what Riot's perception is of the tier 2 scene. I don't really think they expect organizations, because they're not going to pay any stipends to these organizations in tier 2 or anything. The organizations in tier 2 need to try and win to get to tier 1, you would think. And I don't really think they're going to find a way to be profitable if that's not going to be the case, if they're even making any profit at all, which pretty much every organization is not as it stands. But the way that Riot think about tier 2, I don't think is especially healthy, to be honest. They seem to not really be promoting or expecting any stability in the tier 2 scene. They don't really seem to be providing any reason for organizations to stay around. And even they keep saying things like, oh yeah, 5 friends, free agent players, if they were to make it, then that's fine. Like, they'll get a spot and they can get an organization to sign them and come into the main league. Doesn't seem like they really, you know, are supporting the organizations in Tier 2, and they're also not supporting, as Bodork talked about as well, the tournament organizers, right? The tournament organizers really have no money to be made from this, and therefore the entire Tier 2 ecosystem and infrastructure, with lacking additional tournaments in part, and a lot of the organizations are probably going to pull out and cut salaries going forwards, it just means that a lot of the players in Tier 2 have to, you know, just play for free and try and qualify through and win. It's not a particularly healthy ecosystem, I would say, and it doesn't sound to me sustainable, but apparently they don't want that stability. They just want to find players that are really passionate that can make it through. So it doesn't really paint a great picture for me in terms of creating a good pipeline of the next generation of players to come up through Tier 2, but, you know, other esports have bottled their Tier 2 challenger scene for years, and somehow there's still big players that come through. So that's one side of the story. However, they did officially backtrack yesterday on their decision with regard to the guard. Now, does this mean that this is, oh, you know, well done everyone, it's a massive dub? Now, sure, the community, we made our thoughts known on this, and as a result of the backlash, Riot have changed their mind. That is good. Does it mean the players are actually going to get a spot here? That's not necessarily convincing me quite yet. So as they say, today, the 5 players who won at the America's Ascension for the Guard were releasing their contracts. This was the key point. Riot didn't want the Guard to sell those players to another team and effectively sell their spot. Because those guys are now UFAs, unrestricted free agents, they can, if they just qualified without the Guard and as a free agent team, they would be able to join a new team as a 5 and no problem at all. Or maybe even join a new team as 3 of 5. And that's the key question here. We met with the players this afternoon and let them know that they are now free to pursue opportunities with an organization or individually as free agents. The players will have time to either land new teams or present a suitable candidate organization for the Ascended slot. Very eager to see how they pursue their career. So, you know, this is good. This should have been done immediately, but, you know, it took a little bit of time. Now, the question that I have is that, sure, they will be given the chance, as Leah Farrier then goes on to say, we've landed on a path that gives them a chance to compete in the VCT Americas League next year. I've got to say, as well as he says, giving ourselves more time to think through the problem. It's like, you know, this was the one to me. It's like, it's not like the league starts next week, you know what I mean? We've got 4 more months of this off-season before it starts again. There's plenty of time to allow these guys to find a better solution. But we know, for example, with the likes of Tex, that they have been trialing, and potentially Trent as well, potentially Net as well, maybe with Cloud9, trialing with other teams. So it's quite possible that some of those players on the Guard go and join teams they think are better than what the Guard, or, you know, whatever the new organization is going to do with those guys. So then the question is, can they go to a new organization, let's say G2 or FaZe or Optic or someone else tries to come in and get these guys, can they go as less than all 5? Because I think the implication is that they can present a suitable candidate organization for the Ascended slot, but that almost a little bit implies they might require all 5 of the players, you know, to go along to a G2. But apparently, according to George Geddes, even before Riot's decision to say no, that they've now reverted, they were planning to split up, right, and to explore other opportunities, as I've said. You know, Cloud9, potentially NRG, other options could be on the table for these guys. 100 Thieves absolutely is a possibility as well. Now, I'm pretty sure that for the likes of Gentlemates, the EMEA Ascension team, and for Bleed Esports, the Pacific Ascension team, they have to keep 3 of the 5 players on their roster. If they do that, they're fine. So you would think that the same story would apply here, that as long as 3 of the Guards team from last season stay as a team of 5, or as a team of 3 at least, with 2 more, then they would still apply for that. But this is, you know, the thing is Valin might go to Sentinels, that's the rumour, and then we're hearing, you know, Tex is trying elsewhere, we're hearing Net is trying elsewhere, we're hearing, you know, every one of that team is potentially having trials elsewhere, and it's like, well, you know, because, you know, the likes of Valin, he might get a spot anyway on Sentinels, so I'm sure that he cares and he wants his teammates to get another spot and to get that 11th team to actually exist, but in order for that to happen, they either might have to stay together entirely, which is what George Geddes says, because, as he says, they won't get an org, by the way. So, you know, because this is the thing, what Riot are saying, oh yeah, we'll give them the chance to actually compete, but they've already got the chance to compete next season if they get a spot on a franchise team that already exists of the 10. What Riot were limiting was the 11th spot existing at all. And based on their wording, it's still not clear whether that 11th spot will actually exist, because let's say, 4 of those 5 guard players get themselves on an existing franchise team that of the 10 that currently exist, then, are they going to bring in a new 11th team just for the guard player that doesn't get signed? No, I'm pretty sure they won't. I think there'll need to be at least 3 players that want to stick together, and George Geddes seems to think that all 5 players need to stick together in order for this to happen, because he basically says, based on the recent tweet of them splitting up, they're not going to get an org, as in there's not going to be an 11th team after all. So there's still more to come on this story, really, and it depends what the guard players decide to do. Now, Valen says officially looking for an org, so he does say that they do want to achieve this, right? And Valen probably, given his boys and his teammates and stuff, would maybe prefer to sign to an organization with his guys that they just qualified with, rather than go to another team as their IGL, but money's a factor. If Sentinels is better than the guard are going to be, which they probably are, then that's another factor. This is also just a theory as well, that Valent to Sentinels is a possibility. It's just been a rumor for the last few days, so just to throw it out there, really. But yeah, that's kind of where things stand at the moment. I guess the other part of this is what organization might come in to actually sign these guys if the opportunity was there. Now, Hex actually revealed Optigona the other day that when they initially applied for the Valorant application process, they messed up, right, a couple of times. Their application wasn't good enough, and there were good reasons why Riot rejected them, according to Hex, which is interesting because I'm pretty sure that Adam Reimer, who was Envy CEO at the time, was let go very shortly after this application failed. So interesting to hear that what Optic said, that they just messed up their application, that's why they don't believe they got in. But could they return now? For sure, that's a possibility. We've seen the likes of Dignitas say, hey, we're interested, boys, if you want to come along here, and those players can then present a suitable candidate organization that would come through. Also, I've got to say that Hex has been liking a few tweets lately. He also does like this tweet from the one that we just looked at, right? So definitely some implications there that Hex and Optic, and they also left, I believe, Rocket League yesterday, Optic, so maybe that opens up a little bit of budget to potentially come into Valorant. That's definitely a chance. So, these are some of the organizations you might consider. G2, I would say, are the front runners here, if it actually is to happen in the first place, mainly because they got accepted before. They were going to be in the league, but then the Carlos thing happened, and they said no. So, G2 are probably the closest to making this happen, and, I know that Rob from G2 and stuff has also tweeted about, like, yeah, we're working on this, stay tuned type thing. But, even though Riot have backtracked, I don't think it guarantees an 11th team next season, depending on what the guard do. And also, you've got to think that Riot have an incentive to say no, because they want to maybe save some money, right? If the 11th team comes in, they've got to pay an 11th stipend, which they might not necessarily want to do. So very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.